I want you to stomp your feet. And then when I say 3, I want you to cheer, okay? So let's just try that. 1, 2, 3. Your 3 is a bit weak, man. It's like some of you that have been weighed down by some kind of dumpling. What kind of dumpling do you eat? Like, everyone got... So 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So I'm going to welcome onto the stage Alex, Taylor. Come on, as we're going through 1, 2, come on, make some noise. Brittany, Rev, Amano. Come. Jaden. Have I missed anybody else? 1, 2, 3. That should be right. Is that right? Come on, 1, 2, 3. Awesome. What sound was that coming from over there? So, what I'm going to ask you to do, panel members, if we can start off with Alex and work our way down, is just to give this amazing, phenomenal audience an introduction to who you are.
Hello, guys. Hello. Oh, okay. My name's Alex. I'm from Birmingham. I'm 27. I work as a fitness trainer. I have a number of other streams of income, all legal, obviously. But literally, I'm here on this panel literally just to offer my opinion and literally, hopefully, help somebody along the way that's out there that's a bit scared to ask certain questions or whatnot. So I'm seen as quite a wise guy, so hopefully I can bring that wisdom forward. That's me.
Thank you very much.
Hi guys, my name is Taylor. I'm from New Jerusalem Church. I am a personal trainer, fitness instructor as well. I think I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Come on, guys. Come on. Thank you. Awesome. Keep it flowing.
Hi, my name is Brittany. I am, soon to be student, soon to be politician.
Woo!
And I want to, I hope today that I can help contribute to a constructive dialogue. Yeah.
Awesome.
Christine Alco. I hate mics. What we're working with today. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. My name is Amano. I am a director of an arts organization in Digbeth by the name of Punch Records. Also a school governor for Jewelry Quarter Academy. And also a event organizer for a company called ICSA. So they basically train corporate secretaries, so those big guys down in London, basically. So yeah, that's me. And also I work with NCS as a team mentor. So, yeah.
Awesome. Come on, give a round of applause. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jaden. I'm a student, 16, soon to be 17. I'm basically here just to give like a younger outlook on the topics that we're discussing, really.
Awesome. Give him a round of applause. Last but not least.
All right, my name is Tobaija. A lot of people know me as Rev. I've worked very closely with Nathan with First Class. I work heavily in the community, been involved in a lot of projects from films to music to a lot of other stuff. But yeah, I'm just here to kind of give my view and my take on stuff.
Awesome, excellent. Audience, can you give my panel a round of applause, please? Thank you very much. So we're going to kick off this discussion with, I'm going to read a few statements, and we're going to be going into the topic around LGBTQ and how we as the church can engage with that community. But what I'm going to do, just to add a bit of information into the discussion, is I'm going to read a bit of scripture, and then I'm going to read a statement from the Christian Alliance. So, first thing, from Romans, from about verses 22, professing to be wise, they became fools and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man and birds and four-footed animals and creepy things. Therefore, God also gave them up to uncleanliness in the lust of their hearts to dishonor their bodies among themselves, who exchanged the truth of God for the lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason, God gave them up to their vile passions. For even their women exchanged their natural use for what is against nature. Likewise, also the men, leaving their natural use of the woman, burnt in their lust for one another, men with men, committing what is shameful, and receiving in themselves the penalty of the error which was due. And it goes on. So that's what Romans from around verses 22 to 27 says. Now I'm going to read a statement from the Evangelical Alliance. And these following are affirmations summarized in the Evangelical Alliance report in 2012, talking about a biblical and pastoral response to homosexuality. Number 1 says, we recognize that all of us are sinners and that the only true hope for sinful people, whatever their sexuality, is in Jesus Christ. Our earnest prayer is that his love, truth, and grace would characterize evangelical responses to debate on homosexuality both now and in the future. I will give you another 2. Statement number 2. We affirm God's love and concern for all human beings, whatever their sexuality, and also all attitudes and actions which victimize or diminish people whose affections are directed towards people of the same sex. We are encouraging many Christians now to recognize, we are encouraged, many Christians now recognize and deeply regret the hurt caused by past and present failures in their responses to those who experience same-sex attractions. So, that's a bit of context. We read from Romans chapter 1, from about verses 22 to 27, and we've also read briefly a few statements from the Evangelical Alliance. So the question I'm going to kick off to the panel is, how do you feel this statement, the last statements that I read, is being lived out? And do you think that how do you think the church is responding to this statement that's been read? And I'll go to Brittany for her first response.
Thank you. I'd say that I think ideally that is how we should all aim. Our attitudes should be towards everyone, even no matter their sexuality. But practically, I don't think that's how it is viewed in church or how it is treated. I think it's treated as a taboo subject, but also it's also openly talked against. And I think that if we're trying to build a church where we want everyone to feel comfortable and open, and we want to spread the message of God's love, I personally don't understand how that is how that works well with also being openly against people who are of a different sexuality to you.
Awesome. Can we give a round of applause for responding, being the first person to respond? As we said, and for those who just arrived, we are going to ask the audience to interact and engage. So hopefully we have Jardel with a roaming mic somewhere in the audience. That would be fantastic. Is there anyone else that wants to give a response from the panel before we go out into the audience? Thank you for that, Brittany.
I would have to agree with Brittany in that sense. I'd have to agree with Brittany. I think mainly in Black churches, it's an issue because we've mixed culture with gospel. And obviously, according to the gospel, we do stand that it's not the way that God has intended us to live. However, our responses oftentimes are culture-based and not based, which God based, I think, is to respond in love. And culture is like bun that, da, 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 all that kind of stuff, which that then puts people's guard up, and it doesn't allow, for me personally, them to even be open to what the true message of Christ is when we're sending people to hell because of our opinion.
Thank you. Thank you, Taylor. Come on, encourage upon the members. We have a question at the back or a response. Is that right? Did I see your hands up? Nathan? Oh, no. Oh, sorry. Does anyone have a question or a response? So, the question I'll ask back to the panel is, in your observation, what do you think is the biggest challenge within this area for us as a church?
I think it's the lack of empathy. I think, for me, dwelling among people with different beliefs and value systems, you got to meet them where they are and understand the journey that took them to their places. People are complex, and all you can do is listen, hear, and understand, and then give them your message from there. My personal opinion on the topic of homosexuality is that it's a myriad of things. It can be biology, it can be environment, it can be cultural training as well. For me, I think it's down to confusion as one of the underlying issues. And I wouldn't really even approach it from a morals point of view. I more approach it from a biology and saying, sorry for my frankness, is the bottom designed for that type of engagement? No, it's not. So why are we creating a culture around an abuse of the body in that sense? And that's where I would leave it.
Thank you. Round of applause. I really commend us as an organization, Loud, part of, Loud, for those who don't know, is an organization that is a mixture of churches coming together. I think this is powerful that we're actually opening the conversation and having a dialogue. Do we have any responses? Thanks for that, Amano, Taylor, and Brittany. From the responses, please. The mic, please. Wait for the mic, please. Thank you.
The young man, you were bold enough to say that it is biology. Would you like to go on your point of view?
What do you mean?
On homosexuality.
I thought I did cover that when I said biology.
Did you say it was biology?
Yeah, like I said, it was a myriad of things. I said it's biology, environment, stuff like that. Yeah.
Can you extend on when you say biology?
Okay,
I'm
so
asking you to extend.
So,
okay, so with the limited knowledge I have, when I speak about biology, I'm talking about hormones then. From what I discovered in psychology, when they are created, there can be a hormone imbalance where a man's mind may be leaning too much towards femininity, or a woman's mind or makeup is leaning too much towards masculinity. So for my inference is then that if a person grows up where their mind is leaning towards femininity and they are a man, and then the culture dictates where you're supposed to act a certain behavior as a feminine person, then that's the only point I call the gut. So they'll behave in a particular manner. I hope that answers your question.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other points from the audience? So just to probably help stimulate this discussion, we've got about 5 minutes on this topic. From my perspective as a Christian, where I think I have a bit of issue, I think the organization is, I can't remember now, but the main body that's promoting, especially in the UK, around LGBT rights, is I think the fact that I feel as though I'm not allowed to express my opinion or belief, in a sense, and like there's been very aggressive campaigns like on buses to say, people are gay, get over it. Obviously, in the UK, we've just had the Pride Festival. Many global brands are like I think aggressively or exaggeratedly promoting or showing their solidarity in terms of Skittles, for instance. I don't know, is anyone seeing the Skittles packet that's white? Yeah, so basically Skittles put out a whole brand of Skittles that was just a plain packet of Skittles and was just saying that the only rainbow that matters is the Pride rainbow. So there's a lot of brands that are stop eating Skittles, is being said. So, Pastor.
Just to add on to what he was trying to maybe communicate when he spoke about biology or biology, what actually happens, you were asking the last question, what's the contributing?
So my question,
yeah, just
so my last question was, in your observation, what do you think are the biggest challenges within this area?
okay, my view is ignorance of the church, because when it comes to homosexuality, I actually did a study on it because I was also very critical before I actually went into studying this whole, because I counsel a few homosexuals in our church. And there's a number of reasons why people actually become homosexuals. They're not born that way. Well, some are born that way in terms of the fact that they were rejected in the womb. And that is one of the worst cases to deal with. The other cases is when they were abused physically. And also another case is where they were raised only, say it's a boy, and he was only raised among women. That also affects sometimes how they react and how they respond. But the worst case is what he was referring to, when they get rejected in the womb by the mother. Say the mother wants a boy and the doctor tells her it's a girl, and automatically there's a rejection in the womb. And that is one of the worst cases to deal with when it comes to homosexuality, because you need to deal with the subconscious mind of that individual when you minister deliverance. So just to add on, it's not biology, it is the rejection from the parent that started in the womb that causes someone to become homosexual.
Thank you. Can we applaud that? Thank you.
Are we done on that question?
Pardon?
Are we done on that question, or can I add?
Yeah. No, we're gonna add. But I'm just gonna ask the audience, has anyone else got a response? And then I'm gonna come back to the panel to give some clear perspectives and opinions on how we should be responding as a church around this agenda. So, okay, we're not, because of time, sorry, Pastor Yvonne, yeah, we're gonna come to you. Sorry, I do apologize. So we're probably gonna take 2 more points, yeah, from the audience. If we take them together and then we get the panel to respond, would that be okay? So Pastor Yvonne, thank you.
I'm not speaking because I think I've got an answer. I think the whole thing is confusing for everybody involved, gays and non-gays. I was brought up in an era when being gay was a crime. And so now to see it everywhere being touted as a normal lifestyle. And the campaigns that they're having are so aggressive, because it's okay to be gay, but it's not okay for us to be normal, you know, and everything is being weighted in favor of the transgender, gay, lesbian, and it's just getting longer and longer, the list. And I don't think that we should see them as an object for hate, because one thing I realize is that God has given us choices. Okay, he's given us choices, and he died so that we could have a choice. The thing that we must remember, though, with the choice is that there's a consequence for every choice that we make. And one thing I'm afraid of is that a lot of people won't realize the consequences of their choices until it's too late, until their lives are destroyed, until they're trapped in a place that they don't really want to be. So I think as a church, our response has to be one of love and with open arms, not to go against what we believe, because we believe what we believe, and that's God's word. So we're not going to change it to fit in or to appear gay friendly, but we're dealing with humans first of all. That's what we must see, that the fact that they are humans, and try and build relationships with them. Let us put God on show in our lives. And I don't mean pushing it down their throats, but let them see the lives, the transformed lives that we are living, and be available to them to listen to them, not even to offer them solutions, because I don't know if anybody else has got a solution. I don't have any, but we know that through counseling and through deliverance, different things can happen, lives can be changed. We've already experienced people changing from lesbianism to just a normal heterosexual person. We've already experienced that in our church, so we know it's possible. But I think our initial approach must just be one of love and open to receive people and to give them Christ in bite-sized pieces that they can understand.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Pastor Yvonne. Because of time, we literally got 4 minutes left. I'm going to take 2 more points from the audience, and then we're going to get a few summaries from the panel. Thank you.
Hi, I'm here with boys from a program called From Boys to Men. Some of them are from church, some of them are not from church. I think from a standpoint, I like everyone, I like the conversation we're having, because the way that people view the church in that sort of community, from what I see, we see a lot of, if you're Christians, you're not right, you're evil, you're bad, and that's why it's seen, and that's how it's kind of shown from me having personal conversations. I think personally, I think it's hard for anybody to speak on anybody else's sexuality if you haven't experienced it yourself. And I think it's very objective and very like, oh, well, if you haven't experienced yourself, or you don't know anybody personally who's in that situation, it's quite so easy to say this is it or that is it. But I think personally as a Christian, having personal relationships with these people, and having conversations with these people and sitting down with people to actually understand where they're coming from, rather than seeing it from a studies kind of aspect or anything like that. Actually getting to know a person, I find would be the most better approach.
Thank you.
And the kind of thing.
Awesome. Thank you. Can we get a clap for that? One last, is it a point or a question? Okay.
So this is a really quick one. As a Black person, the Bible and Christianity was used to justify racism. As a woman, the Bible and Christianity was also used to justify oppression of women. So as Black people and as women on the panel, how do you feel about the same tools being used to oppress what a minority is apparently?
I think if we're using the Bible to oppress, we're already using the Bible in the wrong way. It's not to oppress, it's actually to liberate. It's because it's the truth. So that's where I would disagree in Christians who use the Bible to oppress in any way. To use it in that way is the abuse of the word that God has given us, and it's actually not really living out the truth, which is love. And I think we focus on trying to change people and stuff when we can't even change ourselves. God is the one who changed us, so we should allow that same thing to happen with everybody else and just show the love of Christ that is apparent in our life towards them as well. I think the issue as well is that we have leveled sin and what we think is wrong. So there's lying is here and gossiping is here, and no one's really uproaring about the gossip in the church. There's no panels talking about gossip when it's real, you know what I mean? And it's as horrible to God as it is everything else. But we see it as here, and then, oh my God, fornication, homosexuality is here, but that's not how God views it. So we need to just take the stance of taking, being aware of our personal journeys with Christ, how he saved us, how he's liberated us and freed us from different things in our life, and look at it the same as everybody else, not to judge, not to use the word to judge or our journey to judge, but to show Christ's love.
Excellent. Awesome. Is there any other panel members, as we're going to conclude on this topic, want to say any final thoughts, like Jerry Springer moment? We need to do his final thoughts.
Just to add to what Sister was saying, I would agree about not judging, but it also is, if we're talking about love, is also to love somebody is also to tell the truth to somebody as well. And you tell the truth in love, if you know what I'm saying. So that's where I would add to that.
Thank you.
In response to the point that Joy made, I think a lot of, because she made like a good point of how the same Bible, like the Bible was used to help oppress women and help oppress Black people. And Taylor's right in saying that that's that's not the way to use the Bible to oppress anything, to oppress anyone, is the incorrect use of it. But also I think that when we're looking at things like that, and how we would say that we can now look back and say that those were wrong and unfounded opinions, that we should almost check ourselves in how we're viewing LGBT, just because I think we're not, in my opinion, I think we don't hear that we're echoing the same type of vocabulary, and it all contributes to the same type of violence, in my opinion. So it's how the same way that we would say that, oh, we can see now how perhaps someone would say, oh, we don't like how they're so in our face or so aggressive with their feminism or with their racial identity, is maybe the same way that we're talking about people's sexuality, and even and we use it, and in the same way that Joy had mentioned, we're maybe using the same tools to justify it in that sense.
Thank you. Thank you, Brittany. Any last points on this? Well, I know there's been about 5 to 6 hands going up on this topic, and you're always going to get people near the end of the debate getting really warm. But I really think that we should commend ourselves for even having this conversation and going there. Obviously, it would have been much better if we had more time. But I think as a closing statement is that we need to be making sure that we're having these conversations in our home, and we're clear about our approach, our responses first in the household, and know how we're going to work with the wider community. Is that making sense? I think it's ignorant just to not talk about it and just have a perspective about it, but without research and without really understanding. Myself, I grew up in a kind of Rastafarian kind of household. So the type of language that we would use around this topic was very aggressive. I'm trying to say there's famous songs out there, Boombai, I won't say the rest. If anyone knows certain reggae tunes, it's very aggressive. But I've had to get educated and make sure that I'm not approaching this issue or this topic with ignorance. Yeah. So I really want to just get you guys to just applaud yourself and thank you for engaging with this topic with us. Thank you. Come on, give yourselves a better round of applause than that. Okay. In my mind, I'm if you could hear the soundtrack in my mind, I'm phew, we got through that. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So the next topic we're going to talk about is around knife crime and gang culture. So for those who was with us last night, we kind of started to talk about this topic. And for those who was here, I quoted a few statements or statuses, I should say. I was going to quote some more with us here this evening, just to give us a context. So in a news report that was published on the 1st of March by the Birmingham Mail, which is our local main newspaper, it was reported that in an 8-week period, we had over 99 stabbings in an 8-week period in 2019, yeah? And also it was reported in The Guardian, I want to actually quote it from the article, so bear with me, please. Is that it said over 600 let's get it exactly. He said over 690 children aged under the age of 17 were attacked or threatened with a knife in the region. That means within the West Midlands area, 690 children in 2018. Now, the question that we want to ask is, why do we think there's such, from a young people's perspective, such a rise in those kind of figures? And I'm going to ask Rev, if you would please, just give a perspective, like, why do we think we're having such a rise in the figures, and what do you think is the root causes to gang culture? Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
So, to be fair, you can't narrow it down to one thing. There's always been gang culture, there's always been knife crime, gun crime, whatever. What I will say, it probably seems like a spike now because of technology, so everyone's a bit more aware of it. There's more access, so you can see it on the social media and that. But to be 100% honest, I genuinely believe it's because the lack of care from the older generations, the parents. I usually ask people, like especially coming to knife crime conferences and things like that, I say, when's the last time you've gone upstairs and asked your son how he feels? It's usually what I get. It's usually the response what I get. Like, they don't practice these things. So how do you know your son's not carrying a knife? How do you know your son's not carrying a gun? How do you know he hasn't been threatened? No one asks these questions. So if you're not doing it, how can you expect anybody else to? Like, what kind of child are you putting out there into society? And then if there's 1,000 other people just like that, 1,000 other kids out there like that, then what do you expect?
Wow. Can we get a round of applause for that point? Do we have any other opinions from the panel about the root causes of gang culture?
I'll just back up Rev's point, really. It's a key thing that he said, and there's a reason why things like panels and discussions and question time are so popular, surrounding the conversation. And these things aren't happening in the homes. Again, if we want to link it back to the last segment, they're not happening in the church. So when these conversations, these vital conversations aren't being happening from a small level, there's no relationship being built between parent and child, church leader and church younger, and then you get to a point where it escalates out of control and people are either stabbing people or doing whatever they're doing, making choices with a lack of education, but then also like a lack of care behind them. So even if they make their first bad choice, the people don't care enough to correct them and steer them back to the right path. So that's my point, just to back on Revs. And
awesome. Come on, Jacob. Please encourage our panel. It's not easy being up here, you know. I'm going to come up to the audience in a bit, so please get your questions ready. Rev, I want to come into you, go back to you a bit, and dig a bit deeper. Is it okay? Is it all right to be real? Is that all right? Because I didn't bring you here to be all pretty and try and sound all politically correct and all that. So Rev, obviously we've been working together for a while. Your background is that you was affiliated with one of the major gangs in Birmingham, or I am, not was, is affiliated. And obviously he was a part of One Day, which was an attempt to try and unify the two major gangs in Birmingham. But I kind of want to ask you, because through my journey with you, there's been some kind of light bulb moments with you that has just like blown my head and actually changed my work and everything. One of them was when we spoke at the church in Hockley, and I was speaking to you on the stage, and I said to you, like, why do you think young people are stabbing each other? And why do you think, you know, people are robbing each other, and, you know, the culture? And you said something around, actually, for young people, it's easier for them to die than to live. Can you give me a perspective on like where that was coming from and why you said that?
So just trying to go back on my thought pattern. So basically, when I said it's easier for them to die than live, it's like there's no expectation of you to be a better person. It's easy to go jail, innit? You get your reputation and you're in jail and then you become a street legend. And there is we don't have expectations. Like I said, most parents don't even ask the simple questions like, what are you doing? Who are your friends? Like how much parents can honestly say they know their friends' names, their child's friends' names, where their child's friends live. Like, so for them going out and doing stuff, it's easy. It's what everyone else is doing. It's normal. They're not getting no other narrative. The media tells them that they're bad. Their parents don't really talk to them, and that to guide them anyway. So they're just out there on their own, their own accord, doing whatever they're doing. And I know from personal experience, like why I always say, I don't ever like to say, I used to be, because I'm around the same people that I've always been around. Like shootings, stabbings, all these things that like been normal to me for my whole, as long as I can remember. Like I was at a funeral like about 3 weeks ago for one of my friends who was stabbed and killed. So it's a normal thing. So I know the realities of it. I know the realities. I know the mind state. I know the mentality. I know how I was when I was young, running around reckless. The only thing I say is now is that I'm not an active gang member, as in I'm not going out committing violence, but I'm around the same people because I am the same person. I got the same views, same understanding. I just know better. So when I'm around them now, I taught life into them because I realized that no one else is really doing that.
Wow. Come on. So the question following on from that, and then panel members, please do feel free to chime in, and audience have questions ready, is what do you think has helped you? So you've been involved with Silent Screens Project. You're currently involved in our Dear Youngers project. And I know through that journey, you spoke in one of our case studies around the fact that you didn't realize that, I think it was like when there was a shooting happening, you was in a car, shots were fired, or someone pulled out a gun on you guys, and like you was just like, oh, this is normal. But like the person in the car was terrified. So like, what's been helping you go through and like going through your transition, because you're on a transition?
To be fair, I've had a lot of experiences like that. But to be 100% honest, why I say it's always important to like reinforce morals, like giving the kids a moral compass and just speak. I'm not saying gun them down, you know, or like keep pointing the finger, like just trying to understand, is because I genuinely didn't understand that what I was doing was not normal. Like, I've been in several of them situations, and even when we was filming the one day film, when I was with one of the directors, and I ain't really told a lot of people this and that, but I was explaining to Nathan, when I was with one of the directors, I was telling them, I was saying that I know we're filming and it's all fun and games we're filming, but I'm saying we can't sit here, because if we sit here, something's likely to happen. And within minutes of me saying that, I had someone like running down on us in the car with the director, and then she was totally shocked, and I was just like, I was confused. I was thinking, why is this weird? Like, why are you scared? And then I realized, I think that was one of the moments I realized that, oh, it's not normal. Like it's not normal. Like I said, I've got friends and family members who have been shot multiple times. Like my younger cousin's been like stabbed 7 times and shot 3 times before he was 21. So these are like everyday experiences. And if you're pushing your kids out into this cold world and you are not asking them a simple question like, are you okay? How can you stand in front of any church, any pulpit, anywhere, and say that you're here for God, or you're representing God? That's not what God represents. And the truth is, if Christ was in this time and now, he'd be in Handsworth, he'd be in Aston, he wouldn't be in certain Coalfield or where this place. He'd be in the hood, going through these exact same things, and you'd probably walk past him. You probably wouldn't ask him if he's all right, how he's feeling, because I know, and with silent screams and things like that, and my cousin Nathaniel, I have to give her a big heads up at the back as well. Like, with the people like you who genuinely ask these questions, because you could have just dismissed me because of how I was, but you'd come, you'd pick me up, you would ask like, what's going on? Like, you're not even talking about all the violence. You're asking me like, how are you? Mm-hmm. And them things, they make you start to be able to actually open up. It may not happen straight away, but eventually you'll open up and you'll start talking, and then you can start hearing other people's opinions and other people's views. And these are our family members and our kids, so we can't be scared to ask these people. They're a product of us and a product of the environment that we've created, and we're facilitating it. So, our responsibility.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Questions, please, from the audience? Sir, can we have a mic here? And ma'am, over there. And that question there as well. Yeah. Hang on, 1 second. Can we get the mics, please? 1 second. So we're going to go to mom first. We're going to come to you, sir. Is that all right? Cool.
It's not so much a question, but an observation that I'd like the panel to comment on. Rev mentioned about lack of care. And I just wondered whether or not one of our main problems is the lack of respect that as adults we show for our youth. And I mention lack of respect because in the homes, we struggle with the change from children to adults. And so, especially for boys, we hear the complaint, oh, pray for him change, him bad, him was such a good boy. The question is, as young people, do you find that your parents are struggling to appreciate that you are now making the transition from boys to men, from women to young ladies, and you need to be respected as such? You need to be loved as such, and your opinions certainly won't be the opinion of a child. You're now an adult, you're moving into adult. Are we showing you that respect? And if we are not showing you that respect, what is it you suggest we can do?
Okay, thank you for that. Can I just take that one question? So hold that question, someone get ready to respond to that. So the question basically is, are children struggling to get respect, is that right, from parents that are not acknowledging that children are growing up, yeah, especially young males? Yeah, so I want that response. Jaden, I'm going to come to you for that. We're going to take two more questions to try and answer them all together because of time. So down here at the front, please, Ophelia, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Background, I'm a lawyer by profession. I'm also a minister. I've represented many young people, be it on crimes that some foreign young people that are being deported out of the country because of crime. My question is, I like what you said, that parents are not engaging with their children at home to find out what is happening in their lives. I want to take back that question back to you, because even our young people feel that being intrusive into their lives. How would you think is the best way to try and manage that kind of conversation without pushing them away, but at the same time engaging with them to make them understand? Last night, I think one of the recommendations was we need to go back to basics, where we have got to sit down and have a conversation, difficult conversation. But in this very Western setup, sometimes that might be intrusive, and kids might think that you're abusing them. So from your journey, how do you think we can manage that?
Brilliant, thank you. Can we give a clap for that question? We're going to take one more from Tanisha. Oh, did you have a question, Tanisha? The mic's coming. Where's Rose?
Yeah, my question was for Jaden. How do you think, and I'm going to kind of give the age bracket now of young adults, because I would put myself in that category. A lot of the time young people say that adults, the older generation, are not relatable. So how do you think the younger adults then can relate to you guys and intervene before you possibly get to that stage of lashing out or depending or relying on a gang to feel wanted, to feel loved? Yeah.
And I'm going to take one more question of Sister Rosemary, because she's been very patient at the back. And then we're going to try and get the response. If you remembered all these questions, some of them are kind of like, that question feels like a match there. It's about back to basics and relatability. So, Sister Rosemary.
Okay. I used to work at a referral centre with all black boys. And then one day we had a discussion about gun crime. And I asked the boys, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And they said to me, either dead or in prison. And then one of the boys in that group had died 2 years ago in being stabbed. So how do you get the students or young boys to realise there's more in life than just being dead or going to prison?
Wow. Thank you. Can we just give a round of applause at this point? Because it's a hard topic, but we're getting there. We're pushing through. So, panel members.
Cool. I'd say just to second what's already been said, as in the one to feel not just loved, but also respected. So when you said, I don't know her name, sorry, but when she said do they feel like they need to be respected? I feel like yes, because if they don't, then they're gonna have that feeling of their lives aren't worth anything. And then because they feel like that, they feel like other people's lives aren't worth anything either. So then once it comes to that, it's a cycle, and then it just leads to, because that's already happened, people carry a knife because now they're scared of what may happen in the future. It's just all linked in, really.
It's all linked. Thank you for that. So Jaden, in terms of the question that was asked around how can adults relate more to your generation and younger, is there any from a young man's perspective you would advise parents to try and do, who are trying to build that relationship to get that kind of connectivity?
It's gonna sound so simple, but literally just asking simple things like, how has your day been? Like when, okay, for example, if I'm coming home from, okay, school and I walk through the door, like, as it's just routine to say hi, mum, walk upstairs. But if your mum stops and says, how's your day been? You're gonna take a step back and think, all right, so you wanna talk, sort of thing. Because most of the time because you're so busy and your parents are so busy, you just do separate things. So you don't really have time for conversations where they actually care about what you've been doing or how you are, etc.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Taylor, Alex, please respond to some of the points that have been made. Questions.
I think it's just broad across all the points, with relationships directly linked to conversation. So like no relationship, no conversation, no conversation, no relationship. It's a case where you were trying to break the cycle. Jaden just alluded to it just then. Someone just asking how your day breaks the cycle. And that's all we're trying to do with every single issue, is break the cycle. I think as Christians, for those Christians that are in the room, our aim is to sow seed. To sow seed will be to break the cycle of how somebody is already living their life. And we just sow seed on a day-to-day basis. I think Rev even mentioned before, Jesus Christ wouldn't necessarily be within the four walls. He was out there amongst the, they called him the friend of sinners. And he didn't take it disrespectfully because he was there to help. And that's the thing, we maybe need to go out and have more conversation like this, but on a one-to-one scale. I believe that a lot of people bypass so many people in their lives that they could help because they're too busy trying to help themselves. But how about you? There's two ways you can look at it. You can either speed up the process of helping yourself so you can help somebody else, or you can still help somebody else in whatever area they need now. There's two areas so there's times when I'm broken and I'll help someone, but I do think it's better to probably feed from the overflow for when you're full. So that's one thing that we could do really in order to start the conversation. And when we have the conversation, there's going to be a relationship. And when there's relationship, they'll relate back to the conversation.
Can we give a mic to Nathan Shiniford? I'm going to ask you a question in a minute, Nathan, around the last presentation. I'm going to give you time to remember that forum, dear youngers. Armano?
There was a lot of loaded questions in there, so I'm trying to figure out where do I start.
So can I give you a recap?
Yeah.
So Mum over there was talking about the fact that how do you manage with young men, young boys who are growing up and maturing in the home and feeling respected and valued. There's a question here around back to basics and what that looks like in terms of the interaction between a parent and a young person. And then I think Tanisha was asking about, Jaden. Jaden answered that anyway. Hope that's helpful.
Okay, for me, where it comes about the relationship between adults and children or young adults, for me, studying about African culture, parents did not leave their teenagers alone. That was their time to guide them. They didn't leave, like how in European culture where this is the rebellious stage, African culture didn't leave you in that chaos, because that was the time when evil and corruption can come into you because you're going through that transition. So in that time, you will either have a mentor. If you was a man, you will have a male mentor. You will isolate yourself on the village with your mentor and go on life journeys and learn about your inner self and about your position in the community. You see what I'm saying? So when we're talking about respect, I'll say it's about seeing them as a human being and as an equal, but also understanding where they are in their journey. So you have a responsibility as an adult, as someone who's gone further and know the trips and barriers and pitfalls, but also seeing them as, you know what, you have to have a bit of patience with them, you get me, because they're moving into a new space. I just wanted to touch on the idea of gang culture and break that kind of down, because what do we actually mean when we say gang culture? Because the idea of a gang is just a group. It's how we're framing this gang and what's the intention of the gang. You know what I mean? So, and also around culture as well. So if we're talking about gang culture as a legal thing, yeah, the mindset is to dominate, cause violence, and get wealth. You get me? But if we flip it on our head and say, okay, the concept of a gang, which is, you know what, we're social creatures, so we're supposed to work in a group. You get me? But we need to change where our vision is. And now, when you're talking about their vision is death or prison, you know what I mean? That's where we start in the home and change.
So we need to replace the vision.
Yeah,
and
and keep the gang and just change the culture.
Awesome, thank you, Nathan. Clap, 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 clap. Man, this is good stuff. Nathan Shillingford, if you may. So we're running the Dear Youngers project, and I was a part of one of your forums where you was kind of giving a synopsis from some studying you was doing around masculinity, and I just thought if you could just give a bit of that into this space, I think it would be useful.
Okay, so in the Dear Youngers forum, we had a discussion around what makes a man, and we looked at masculinity, and we started to break down what does masculinity consist of. So we looked at it from a perspective whereby it's an image that is portrayed, or it's a stereotype, or it's a perception. In terms of masculinity, it's normally down to strength, your ability, how you look, how your physique is. And also masculinity is something that is not given, it's actually earned. So we started to break it down a bit more, and we started to ask key questions. For example, who teaches you how to be a man? That was a question that was asked in this forum. There was about probably 10 young males in there from the age of 13 up to 38. And when I asked that question, most people's response was mother, sibling, role model, myself, life. No one in that discussion said father, not one person. Now, I've taken that discussion into prison and asked the same question. Who teaches you how to be a man? Everyone does not say father. So there's an issue there with fatherhood, something that we need to look at. And we looked at masculinity from a perspective of purpose. So just quickly, we looked at Superman and Clark Kent. Same people, same individuals. One has power, one has strength. One seen as nerd and one seen as weak. They're both the same individual, but they're only accepted in certain capacities. So Superman's required when there's an issue or there's a problem. He approaches it with humility and with purpose. So he's purpose driven. And then we looked at Hulk and Bruce Banner. It's all about Marvel, I know, but you know, Hulk is driven by aggression. So when things happen, in order for him to be purposeful, he has to be aggressive. And when he comes in with an aggressive approach, there is destruction, but at the same time, some people get saved. But there needs to be a balance in terms of how that masculinity is managed and how we deliver that.
Wow.
Could I just add to that, sir? Very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick question to Rev. What would you say to a young man or a young girl that finds themselves in a sticky situation? So you've got postcode wars and all these things where they've maybe gone to see a friend and they see like a few men them or a few people coming towards them. They know it's going to be a confrontational situation, or you see someone that pulls out a knife to you, but you're not really involved in that culture, or you're not trying to be a part of that. What would be the best thing to do? Obviously run, but do you try to speak to them? Do you just try to get out of the situation? What would you say?
To be honest, at that point there's nothing you can do, because the aggressor's going to do what they want to do regardless. And that's just the cold-hearted truth. The point where you want to get to them is way before that. Like, why do these people recognize you for, like, as a threat to them or a reason why they'd want to approach you? And it's usually because of friends they're hanging around with. The image that they've put out of themselves on the internet. That's how people get affiliated when they see you in pictures with people, they're around them sort of people. So what you need to ask people, and I never tell anybody to not hang around with anybody. I never tell people, I don't even tell people don't commit crime. These are things that leave my mouth. What I say to people, especially the young people, is make sure it's true to you. Make sure it's true to you. And if you're gonna do it, don't complain, accept everything with it. So if your friends are getting stabbed, that's the life you chose. If you're gonna go jail, that's the life you chose. And a lot of the time, they don't even understand the consequences of these things because they're not being told it. So when you start telling them the reality of life and how it will end up for them, not how I think it's gonna end up, like I've got loads of experience, how it will end up for them, a lot of them start to reconsider like, well, is this actually me? Is this person beneficial for me? Because if that person ain't helping you to get to your destination, helping you become the person you need to be, then you need to leave them. No arguing, no considering it, leave them, because as a young black male, especially in Birmingham or any of these inner city areas, is very, very, very dangerous. And you taking a picture with someone can lead to you being killed. I've seen it many times. So at that point there, the only thing you can do is be honest and true to yourself. The reality of the situation though is that's at the last stage. So, and the aggressor, it's down to the aggressor. But going back to what I was saying anyway, the aggressor in that situation, who spoke to him? Who went upstairs and asked him if he's carrying a knife? Who went and spoke to him, asked him how he felt? Because a lot of confrontations and things happen are not planned. It's spontaneous. It's all these emotions that a person's been feeling, that incidents happen, and they've just took it out on that person there and then. And that's because they've had no therapy. No one's asked them, their parents ain't asked them. Which I'm gonna go to the point as well, because you did ask and that about relationships with how to build it. It ain't an overnight thing. A lot of the time the kids ain't gonna want to hear it. They went, oh, my dad is trying to talk to me again. But eventually they will talk because it becomes normal to them. It becomes normal. So you need to normalize asking, normalize talking. Because one thing I do realize, when the kid's out in the environment and is destructive, no one's accountable, no one claims it. That kid becomes a doctor or scientist or whatever it is, the parents are glorifying it. Like, look what my kid did. But where's the accountability when your kid's doing bad? Or when you're hearing them? A lot of the times we go into schools and when you go to speak to the parents want to fight you down before they even hear what's going on. And that's because you've took them away from work. You're asking them something that they feel you have no business asking them.
Come on, just give a round of applause. Wow. I know Taylor wants to put a perspective. We literally got about 5 minutes left.
I know.
So we're going to go to Taylor, and then what you saying?
I'm going to be really quick. I was just going to say as well, obviously, this whole thing is to see how we can help, especially as church. And even in Timothy, it says that we are all brothers and sisters. So when we look at it as it's a me problem as well. Like it's all of our problems when it is happening to one of our brothers and sisters. That guy who died last week, that was my brother. And once you take it that seriously, then you can probably actually look for active ways to contribute to a positive change. Also, relationship doesn't happen overnight. Like with the children now, you need to learn how to have conversation and respect a child from when they were young. So when they're 13, you're not trying to start a conversation with them because you haven't spoken to them for 13 years. They're like, why are you trying to be in? That's when they're going to say, why are you in my business? That's when they feel like it's intrusive, because for 13 years, you haven't respected me enough to say, hey, what's going on or whatever. So build relationship from now. And if you haven't and you have children, definitely start it. It's going to be awkward at times.
I'm going to quickly add to that as well. You don't actually have to be relatable. Like, use the fact that you don't relate as a way to relate. Like when you're speaking to them, be like, okay, well, I would never have seen it from that perspective because how I deal with things is such and such. You don't always need a person to relate to you. Sometimes it's the fact that they don't relate to you and they have a different perspective. Like for me, like I was saying, that opened my eyes when I seen that the people around me was fearful or they was scared. I was like, okay, now I can understand. Now they're speaking to me like, wow, if this is what you're going through in your everyday life, then no wonder why you're like this. So they understand. And now I understand as well.
Wow, thank you. Come on, keep the energy up. Just a quick perspective. I'm going to ask Pastor Wayne to give a comment in a second. Bear with us in a second, sir. In a second. Just to give a context, in psychology, or I would say in counseling practice, they talk about a model or theory called PAC, which is called parent, adult, child, which comes under a theory called transactional analysis, which basically really breaks down how communication happens from a model. If you could imagine, like the P being parent, A for adult, C for child, and it does these lines when you look at the theory. It talks about sometimes when we're communicating with each other, and especially if it's a younger person, we're doing like the parent to child dialogue. And what it says in the theory is that if you're trying to talk to children as like your parent and they're the child, that you're going to clash. But what it says in the theory is that actually, if you engage in conversation where you're actually looking at the child as adult and you're adult and you're having adult to adult conversation, it says that it improves the communication. And it's an interesting theory just to look at, of like, it's very practical and basic, but it's called transactional analysis, and talking about how sometimes the clashes happen, especially because when Mum was speaking about it earlier, is that especially when children are growing up, and I know as someone that's now got a teenager, is that how I used to talk to my daughter before, yeah, you're right. Like it's changed, you know what I'm saying? And I have to kind of talk to her in a different dialogue, and I've had to change and mature a bit. So that might be helpful in terms of just how we transaction in our communication. Sir, you had a comment and a thought you wanted to say.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My name is Wayne, D-Dog for those who don't know me, whatever you want to call me, dealing with the young people. I think my comment would be directed at not just at this panel, but coming from an African perspective, where we've seen all of this happening on larger scales than what you could ever imagine. And my comment is slightly complementary in terms of where the UK is, because in Africa, we never had this opportunity of open debate and discussion. We have kids that are 12 years old that have to raise kids that are 4 years, 5 years, and 7 years old because both parents have died. We just dealt with a case in South Africa where a young boy who was 11 years old, looking after his 3 siblings, his shack that he was living in burned down and all his siblings died. We have kids that are joining gangs because it's the only place where they can eat. We have kids joining gangs because it's the only place where you feel safe. We have boys that are living in the streets in shanty houses that at night he has to put the bed, the clothes, whatever he has against the wall, because the perpetrator, who's an uncle, who he's living in somebody's backyard, but at night the uncle's coming to rape the 5-year-old and the 7-year-old boy at the same time in the same house. I'm painting that picture because I want to compliment Birmingham and the UK that you have not reached that point yet. Let the debate flow, because it can still be preventative before it escalates to that kind of level. You have infrastructure, you have education, you have free education. Our kids don't know what it is like to go to school not having a pants, not having a pair of shoes. That's the level we are. And so you are still at the level where you're still dealing maybe with, and I'm not saying that ours is worse than yours, because all over the world it's bad. But where we are at in Africa, we've lost some of those battles because we have not had the opportunity to have these kind of debates. We have not had the opportunity to still look at, there's 4 young men sitting on the platform. In the next 5 years, you're going to be the grown-ups. The question is, what kind of father are you going to be? That's the discussions we need to have now so that we can become preventative in what we want to do. And so you have the infrastructure, we don't have law in our country. There's no law. There's no law to guide our youngsters. The guys are saying, I'd rather go to prison. The reason why I'm going, I'm having a meal. I'm protected, I'm safe. You're not at that level yet. And so by God's grace, let's pray that the UK will not go to that level. Can I get a good amen right there?
Amen. Awesome.
Can I quickly just say something on that? because I have to, and like, I got loads of respect for everything that you just said, and you're correct in terms of we ain't at that level on a bigger scale. But here's the reality. My world, you know, when people say my world, my child is my world, they've created their own world within a world. In my world, that does happen. I know people who ain't got their parents. I know kids who are robbing to eat. Like I said, I've got friends who have been stabbed, shot, murdered. So what you see on that larger scale, in my world, amongst the people I speak to, that is that. We are in those places in Africa, in Spanish Town in Jamaica. We live in that within our own circles, and we don't see the outside world. This is why I say, when I said that it was hard for them, it's easier for them to die than live. That's where that train of thought comes from. And the problem is that because subconsciously we don't see it as the same, we don't treat it as the same, therefore it happens. The moment we start saying, actually, this is serious, you couldn't tell me that me losing 9 of my friends in 1 year is not serious. I know people in Jamaica right now ain't lost 9 of their friends, but I have. One of my friends suffered from schizophrenia. He got shot 7 times and now he's schizophrenic. His brother doesn't come outside because he doesn't want the same thing to happen to it. So he's now developing that himself. And I see it, like I say, I see it within the circles. The problem is people don't see it until it hits their front door. And the moment it hits their front door, then it's, oh, we should do this. We should do that. Where was that before? Where's the accountability? So, as I said, I respect everything that you're saying, and you're 100% right in terms of on a big scale, it's not the same. But the reality is, them laws that you don't have in place, we don't have in place. There is no laws here amongst the youths. Hence why they're going out stabbing, shooting, getting 30 years. They don't care about that. There's no laws within the household. Like, people can walk in and out, friends can walk in and out. Half of these parents don't know there's guns and knives in their houses. I used to keep guns and knives in my house. Like, it's normal. So law, it doesn't mean anything if it's not implemented, if it's not spoke about, if it's not taught. Just like in the Bible, we're going to talk about the LGBT and all that. But like, there's many laws. Is that the only sin in the Bible? Was that the only sin? Like, there's many sins, there's many laws. How much are you actually keeping up? What the laws in your household? Like,
thank you.
Yeah.
Amano, and I was going to get some final points from the panel because we are unfortunately out of time. People are shouting my name, and who's that? Sorry, Shekinah. Do you want to say it? No, say it. Go on, Shekinah. You're my sister, man. Go. Okay.
Yeah, for me, I echo both the gentleman and Giselle's point. It goes. I also think it goes back to the individual as well. There's a saying, a mystery teaching, yeah, where it states that the inner reality creates the outer form. So to expand on that, if you're in internal chaos, you'll try and seek control outside. You understand what I'm saying? So when you're in confusion, you'll go and get control outside, so you'll control everyone else. So when you're like going through a manic internally, you will see like men like who are going through struggles, they will either, if they got a girlfriend, they'll abuse their girlfriend or their kids, or they'll go rob and they'll go steal. They get me? So what we need to turn back into is creating the law and internalizing the law in ourselves so that we can be externally free. Does that make sense? So when you're if you're internally controlled, yeah, you won't need to trouble no one else because you got enough love in yourself. You get me? So everyone can walk around. You won't need no police telling you you won't need to write no man-made law because the law's always sitting within you. You know what I'm saying?
I like that. Yeah. I know how Kevin loves them things, you know. Sir, last point. I'm gonna give it to you. Pardon? Oh, Bishop's gonna speak. Okay, go on. Or why don't both of you speak? Go on.
Yeah. Thank you very much. My job, I'm a child protection social worker.
0 minutes.
So my job is to protect children. The first line when I talk to children is that my job is to make you feel safe. I've removed children in circumstances and situations which are quite concerning. I've seen children cry when I removed them, where they will never see their parents again. for their own safety because of what we know regarding their situations and circumstances. I know, for example, what you've been referring to as environment is very important in terms of what an environment determines what grows in there. So I know, for example, children that are exposed to domestic violence, they'll be aggressive. Children that are exposed to neglect, for example, they will be clumsy and all those kind of things. I think my question and comment is, when you talk to children, for example, to say, look, you know, I'm aware that people that you're involved with can lead you the wrong way. And a lot of answers you get is, I want to try this for myself. I want to see it for myself. What I want to ask you is, how can we talk to young people to make them understand that actually you don't really have to see it for yourself. Actually, there are people who have gone through this, who are living examples of where you are trying to go. How can we convince young people not to even dare go that way because it's not worth it?
Thank you, sir.
Okay. First, I must say, I believe this thing can be solved. I listened to both debates and I hear that the branches are going this way, and we didn't go to the root, you know, and I'm sorry about the time. So it can be solved, and I know, and I will leave with you to the next time you debate, like, how can it be solved? Okay, so you will answer that. I know how it can be solved. I'm from, my time, I have 2 minutes. I am from Jamaica. I've been through what you have been through. I've heard the African statement. I love that. But I've also worked with the mafia, meaning the government. I'm not ashamed to talk. The government, the politician, you name them. So if I get there, probably 100 and something people, if we get 1,000 serious people from the church, we can solve the problem in 3 months. Okay? The Queen make 3,060,000 something every 24 hours, and she don't really pay taxes. She dodge it, and we can go there with placard. If Rosa Parks didn't sit on a bus, we wouldn't have this option today. If Martin Luther King didn't march, we wouldn't have that option today. So I'm saying, if the church is really serious with the love that we have, with the prayer we have, Jesus Christ saved my life, I must thank him for that, or I don't know where I'd be. But I tell you, let's solve these problems now. Maybe it's not for us now. I'm 40 years old, but the next generation to come and the other one will come. It will benefit them. It can be solved.
Come on, let's give them a round of applause. So we're just gonna we got two topics, and we're ending on the gang culture and knife crime. But can I just have a final thought from each one of you that you'd like to leave with these amazing audience members this afternoon? Starting with you, yeah, and let's go all the way down. And I'm going to hand over to
my final thought is that I'm challenged, and I think every single person in this building today should feel challenged. That point that you made there, sir, you made a lot of points, but the point that you made was that we as a body, or we as people, we can come together and we can do something. I alluded to the point earlier about us coming out of ourselves to help somebody else. That's what we need to be doing. I think when we speak so much about relationship, we just need to start building it from where we are, because we can only start where we are. We can go back in time over all the statistics, but let's try now to put something in place. New Jerusalem, Jabula, whatever other churches are represented here today, and even community groups as well. Start putting programs in place, start putting little measures in place, because Amano said it. It's within self-governance. We're so dependent on the government. We're so dependent on other things. Parents, we're dependent too much on the schools. You think your kid's going to learn how to grow up in school? No, they're going to learn in the home. And church, we're realizing that there's many broken families. We need to be a family that's put together in order to house those people who are broken. And then from there, we will grow. But again, it goes right back to the individual, and whether the individual wants to make the choice to change. So that's my final point.
Wow. Come on. Sister Taylor?
I don't know if I can back that up, but I agree with everything that Alex said. And I would just say love conquers all. That's it.
Awesome.
Like, I feel like the root of the gang violence is a lack of love. The root of the LGBTQ community is a lack of love in a sense. Love conquers all, and Jesus is love.
Thank you. Sister Brittany? They try to skank you into that, man.
I'd say that I agree with, I don't know your name, sorry, but the last guy, I like the sentiment that we have the power to change, because I feel like when we face such big issues, we like to think that it is something that is purely systemic, you know, these poor black boys that are falling into this like cycle of violence, when in reality there's the systemic issues, but there's also like the cultural issues. It's like, what are we doing as a family, as a unit that contributes to it? And like, as Nathan mentioned about how we view masculinity, like we think it's like synonymous with violence or the ability to provide. And when we respect, as a culture, we respect men on their ability to provide no matter how they do it. Like we see like men like Jeff Bezos, like the guy who owns Amazon, like we respect him because of how much money he has and what he's done. But even though knowing that like he made all that money through like not the best means. So I think when we're looking at how we're going to change it, how we're going to break it down, how we're going to try and end knife crime and gang violence, we need to look at what our culture is doing to feed into it, how we view masculinity, what we're doing as a family. Like the same thing Alex was saying about as a church family, instead of being so insular, how it is that we're looking to be in the community. But yeah, I appreciate, I like the sentiment that we can change it, because I think we should try and build on that.
Wow, awesome. Thank you, Brittany. Amano?
To the individual, I say this: respect is I view respect as a verb. Its origin is a Latin, so respect is R-E, which means to look again, and then spectere, it basically means to look again, basically. So you need to look again into yourself. That's for the individual. To the group, I say, we can't stop gang culture unless you're providing them an out. So if you are not giving them jobs or something that they can turn their hand to, so those skills that they're learning within the gangs or in prison, wanted to apply it to the community and give them a stake in that community. There's enough churches and there's enough black people who have businesses, small or medium or large, that you can say, yo, you come here for 2 weeks and I'll give you a little pocket change to sweep my floor. Even in the barbers used to give young people to sweep the floor and give them a little money. What happened to that? They get me? So that's that bit that I would say.
Balenciaga's happened. Balenciaga's, like they couldn't buy the shoes, they did £5 for the sweeping. Yeah. Carry on. Thanks for that, Amano. That's powerful. Can we celebrate Amano? Jaden and Rev.
The only other thing I'd add is, I feel like not just in the church, but it's general, young men need more mentors. Simply because, okay, it's gonna sound so like back in the day, said for time, but fathers are absent. So at a certain point, okay, I'm 16, I respect my mom, but at a certain point, you're gonna think, okay, she can tell me what to do. What, as men, we're physical, so you're gonna know, okay, she can't hit me. Like, why? That's the mindset. What are you gonna do, sort of thing. If you have no father figure or no mentor to be there, you're gonna think, okay, no one can chat to me then, because if no one's there, then who is gonna stop you really? So I'm just saying, really have more mentors, because we're very helpful.
Thank you, Jaden. Awesome. Last but not least.
Yeah, just to add on to a few points on that, I think, yeah, that's definitely important. Every young boy does need a mentor, a male mentor at that as well, especially within our community. Also, to the gentleman who's saying that it can change, I 100% agree with you. I wouldn't argue that fact. It definitely can change. May not be like a short-term plan, but with a plan, it can change. My final statement in that would be more like 2 parts. So one would be to the young lads here and the young lads and ladies in the crowd. I don't know yous. I don't know your life. I don't know if you're living good lives, bad lives, or whatever. But what I will say is, look into yourself, like start questioning things, like you have value, understand your value as a human being, understand that your life and who you are is worth something. Even if you don't hear it, I'm telling you that it's worth something. You have the chance to be anything and do greatness. and that regardless if no one's tell you. And another thing as well, beware of who your friends are. Not everyone you call your friend is your friend. And some people are there just to use you. A lot of people are in gangs because you have a common enemy, not because they care about you. On an average day, they won't ask you, have you had water? How's your mom feeling? And the reality is, if something bad does happen, God forbid, no one's contributing to your funeral. Nobody.
Wow.
Your mom, the same people that you're afraid to talk to, the same people going to hold their belly and cry for you, and that's your parents and your siblings. The reality is a lot of your friends won't be there, and after a while, they're going to stop going to your grave, and your grave's going to become dusty, and that's you there forever, and that's just the reality. And for the adults, I'll just say, if you ain't doing it already, please go and do it. Ask your sons, ask your daughters how are they feeling, because just with that conversation, you can find out how they perceive the outside world, what kind of individual they are when they go outside of the house. And that alone can help a lot. Yeah, some things are like, it's hard to change and it will take a long time, but there's always a start somewhere. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say, and respect to everyone.
Come on, can you give this panel, this amazing panel, come on, let's give them a standing ovation, please. Let's celebrate them. Wow. Awesome. Fantastic. Brilliant. You may be seated. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We just got a few more comments and reflections and summary. But we really do thank you for your time this afternoon. We appreciate you. And we really thank the leadership of this gathering, really, for allowing us the opportunity to have these discussions. A quick announcement. Nathan Shinnifen, could you wave, please? If you are a young male, because we are collaborating with our Dear Youngs project today, if you want to receive, if you're 16 to 25 and you complete a survey, a short survey, you will get today a free £10 voucher. Females, please do not throw anything at me. I am just a messenger. So basically, fill in a survey and you're entitled to a voucher worth £10. Thank you. Nathan, just wave your hands. Boys, look at Nathan, look. Okay, can we welcome up onto the stage our very own Bishop Marvin Brooks. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. And to this great panel, thank you very much for your contribution, for sharing and making your statements and your experiences, your views, and we hear what you're saying. Once again, thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you, Pastor Voss, for allowing me to take a space here. A couple of things to say. Our theme is dealing with building according to God's blueprint. Now, if we go back into creation, in the book of Genesis, when God made man, he made a man. And the man was all that he needed to maximize his life and his future. God says not good for man to be alone. So God went to the man and took out a rib and made a woman. God didn't say, here is your wife or here is Eve. He presented her to Adam. Adam had so much brilliance in him. He looked at her and says, whoa, man. Bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, to be called woman. That means the word there is a man with a womb. Now, when God made man, he told him now that he should not eat a certain tree in the garden. If you do, you will die. Well, the day Adam ate of the fruit, we blame Eve. But Eve must not be blamed. She was not given instruction. Adam was. Sin wasn't established until Adam ate of the fruit. When he ate, sin came, discovered they were naked, and hid themselves. God found them eventually and covered them, and they were cast out of the garden to live another life. So, Genesis 3:15, when Adam sinned, God says, the woman's seed shall bruise the serpent's head, and the serpent will bruise his heel. So now, the day God said that, every male child became a threat to the devil. Right through history, you go back into Egypt, the male child. When Christ was to be born, the male child. The devil is trying to eradicate all males because the males are the seed carriers. They are the visionaries. And so it conspires with others now in our society to destroy male. For illustration, what you're having now in our culture, God, may I quickly say in advance, I am not criticizing anyone here. I'm going to say next. Single mothers, I'm not criticizing, I'm making a statement. Okay? God never intended for any child to be born out of wedlock, number one. Never did. God never intended for any child to be without a father in his life. Never did. So when sin entered into the world through Adam, then everything that God set up was dismantled from the family surroundings. And from that lead to rebellion. Christ came to deliver us from sin, but a sin of rebellion. It was rebellion that caused sin to enter the world, disobedience. So what we are now facing is a world that has been corrupt by one man choice. Christ came and died for our redemption, but unless we turn back to him and follow him, we are going to be in the same dilemma. So now we have young men at home with mother, and mother is not able to do what you could or should do based on work, 2 jobs sometimes. That boy is left at home or with friends. It creates other things. There's TV, there's phones, and it goes on. So we are dealing with many, many means of communication that our sons and daughters will be faced to choose from. So in the arena of homosexuality and lesbianism, as you said earlier about biology and different things, the reality is, for example, the group we're saying now, they're called pedophile. They are saying, I was born this way. But how long before they have a right to live that way legally? Anything that goes against the will of God is corrupt, remain corrupt and destructive, and destroy community as God intended. So whilst I understand you may have feelings for the same sex, and you may have those kind of things because of rejection in the womb or abuse or a different situation, the reality is you don't have to make that choice. It's a choice. You're not agreeing with me now. You're not clapping now. It's a choice to make, all right? If I feel like killing you, it's a feelings. I don't have to go through with it. If I see a girl coming the road and she look good and I lust after someone, I want to try and rape her, it's a choice I made. Come on. I have the feeling, it's a choice I made. Choices. So sometimes people hurt you, feel like killing them. Some of you do. And some do, and some don't. So be mindful of the fact that you have feelings, but feeling comes and feeling goes. Watch the same boy who killed some men in the courthouse in some place in the world. When they're sentenced to life in prison, they break down and start crying like babies. The reality is we are going to face the fact that society has gone way out of God's will, and because of that, we're going to have these challenges. When you abuse your children, when you abuse your wife or even your husband or partners, you're going to have problems with children because they see all. We are in a time where the church has to be the Lord's voice. But at the same time, we cannot be criticized consistently, not knowing what we are doing. The church, in our community at least, is the strongest moving organism. The church is the standing one. Everything goes, but the church stays. We need men like you, girls like you, women like you, just young women like you, to act up as young women. It was said today, we have our feet in the necks in the first. No. We want maturity to come. Maturity comes through exposure and trust. If you prove to be trustworthy, committed, and loyal, we can release you to be greater because in you is greatness. So everything you discussed today can be fixed over time, but unless we as a people realize who we are, and we're not secondary. The writer Alice Bailey wrote her 10-point plan in 1949. And one was to remove Christianity. One was to remove parental rules. One was to make sex free and also, good Lord, some of the things, 10 points you read. The 10 point was to make government turn into laws. So 60 years later, they're all becoming laws across the world. She said that 60 years ago. In fact, if I read it for you quickly, if I can, see what it says. I would read the headings. It's very important to understand the system we are seeing now was declared years ago by a woman who was an Anglican woman who would change her belief system, find a new mentor, and decide this. Number one, take God out and prayer out of school. Number two, reduce parental authority over the children. Number three, destroy the Christian family structure or the traditional Christian family structure. Number four, if sex is free, then make abortion legal and make it easy, she said. Build clinics for abortions. Number five, make divorce easy and legal. Free people from the concept of marriage for life. Number six, make homosexuality an alternative lifestyle. Number seven, debase heart, make it run mad, she said. These hearts are of the primary keys to changing culture. Number eight, use media to promote and change mindset. The media, we're there now, all the iPhones, everything's in there, every garbage on there, and so is good education is in there. The fact is, that's what she said. 9, create an interfaith movement, she said. Promote other faith to be the same as Christianity. And number 10, get government to make all these points law and get the church to endorse these changes. That's her plan. And so when the church stand up, we're not ignorant, we know history. And we're going to stand on the truth. Homosexuality is a choice lifestyle. I don't condemn you, reject you. But if you are to live godly, you have to understand there's something you cannot do according to God's law. My view does not count. If you want to know the rule, ask God the question. His word declare how we're to live. Lying is wrong. Stealing, backbiting, corruption, hypocrisy. Everything is there. Romans 1 has them all. It's all against God's will. When you have a reprobate mind, you become evil, you become ungodly, unthoughtful, almost unsavable. Because unless you turn back to God. So the Bible is there. The Bible was used by somebody against slaves, not because the slave could not read, they couldn't read English. If they were able to read English, they would not go the way they did. They had no other ideas. They came from Africa, their own language, their own culture, and they attempt and did change their mindset about their different things. But the truth remained that the slave never understood English at the time. So they were told everything, how to live and what was what. The white man was superior or this was that. But the fact is, if they could read English, it'd be a different story. And right now in our culture, many of us still don't read, as we should, to find out who we are and who God made us to be. We are never inferior. God made us wonderful, and we're here to succeed. And so you can understand that. Your color doesn't define you as a negative and cannot do. You are what it takes to be a giant success in life. To all of us, all the things that are in and coming against the word of God, in the hand, will fail. But God is always supreme. We thank God for this session and for you wonderful young people. Third, God bless you. Good to see you here. What's your name? Last name? I thought I knew you. One of my all-time mentees back then. Another family. My point is, all of these young people have great potential. When we are gone, hopefully they'll take over from us. So now you have the freedom, maximize your freedom in a sense that find you. Find who you are, not what you have become, who you are. It's not your what, it's your who. When you find you, it's all well. Amen. So be encouraged, and God bless you all today. Brother Nathan, thank you very much for your chairmanship and for all the young departments. We are encouraged by you. Hold on in there. Stay strong. Let me see you in church Sunday, George Street, 1 o'clock. Look for you, man. Look for you. Any got a question for free? No, back to you, Nathan. So it's all good. In our day, we couldn't ask questions like this. In our day, you sit down, your toes shut up.
Come on, can we give Bishop Malvin a round of applause? Can you just stand with me? I just want to close. I'm going to close this session officially afternoon. Thank you for our visitors from the Merge Leadership Project. We appreciate you. We thank you for spending time with us and all our other visitors. But if it's okay, I know not everyone probably believes in prayer, but we do. We're praying people. So we're just going to pray. We're going to close in prayer. We're going to ask God to continue to guide us in these challenging times. I like how Bishop was speaking. Very firm, very correct, and according to the word. Because who knows, without the word, my God, where would we be? That's our compass, that's our guide. And with how the world is going, we need to be clear about who we are and whose we are and where we're going and the direction that we need to go. So if you just bow your heads with me as I close this session in prayer. Father, in the name of Jesus, I wanted to say thank you so much for allowing us to have this discussion, to debate about different things that are happening within society. We pray, God, as individuals that we will leave here and be changed, be transformed and empowered to make a difference in our spheres of influence. But as Amano said, Lord, help us to really reflect on our inner game, like what's happening inside. And then once we've got control of inside what's happening internally, we can start to have an influence on stuff externally. Lord, I just thank you for this evening, this afternoon. And I pray that as we go our separate ways and we come back this afternoon, that you just be with us. Allow angels to go before us, dismantle any plan or any sabotage of the enemy that will try and come on the back of us having these discussions. We rebuke them now and we decree in the name of Jesus that we shall be victorious and we shall have the victory in Jesus' name. Someone say, okay, God bless you. And there's going to be some announcements playing, I believe, automatically. So please feel free to